Good evening, my fellow Marylanders. Today, Governor Wes Moore gave his State of the State speech, and I am excited to be here tonight talking to you about it. This is one of my first IG Live campaign speeches, and I'm hoping to do more of these going forward. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This speech of Wes Moore's today was more of the same lofty platitudes about progress and possibility. But when the cameras go away, he and his team will keep working behind the scenes with Democratic leadership in Annapolis to side with corporations, landlords, polluters, arms dealers, and the peddlers of false fear of crime narratives. Governor Moore is right about one thing. Maryland is in crisis. Our economy is stagnant, the cost of living is sky high, and we already are slashing the education plan Annapolis Democrats mortgaged our future for. All of this was the case before Trump and the DC Republicans were elected. Business as usual Annapolis politics cannot meet this moment of crisis. Let's also be clear. Wes Moore and Annapolis Democrats are afraid of former Governor Larry Hogan. This was the case in 2024 when Hogan was running for U.S. Senate, and it is the case now that they are afraid he will run for governor in 2026. Today's State of the State speech represented the beginning of a 2-year campaign by Maryland Democrats that will see Moore move further to the right. Let's break down what Moore said and what he didn't say. First, taxes. Governor Moore touted his progressive tax reforms, but he did not say that his corporate tax cuts and slight tax increases on the 1% will fail to close the deficit. And he did not say that he and the Annapolis Democrats have refused to take up progressive taxation for the last several years. He also didn't say that his budget relies on regressive user fees, hidden tax increases, and that it passes hundreds of millions of dollars in unfunded costs to the counties, who in turn will be forced to raise taxes. This type of regressive taxation further squeezes the budgets of hardworking Marylanders already squeezed by taxes and fees. Next, education. Governor Moore boasts about the Kirwan Commission's blueprint for Maryland's future and the importance of education to Maryland. But what he didn't say is that his budget slashes well over $100 million in funding from public universities and shifts $1.6 billion away from the blueprint for Maryland's future over the next 4 years. This is a betrayal to our children and our educators. Third, immigration. Governor Moore took the time to recognize individual immigrants who are contributing to their communities, but he did not lay out any plans at all about how his administration will protect those very same immigrants and immigrant communities from Trump's sweeping mass deportation policies that have already started and are already hitting people in Maryland. Next, housing. Governor Moore talked about the necessity for affordable housing to convert renters into homeowners. But what he did not talk about is Maryland's skyrocketing rental rates or the mass eviction crisis. We here in Maryland lead the nation in eviction filings, and if we don't address that problem first, no matter of homeownership will help it. Next is crime. Governor Moore talked about how we are breaking the back of violent crime. But what he did not mention is that our prison population leads the nation in young people charged as adults and has the highest percentage of Black people in its prisons when compared to our general population. Next, economy. Governor Moore talks about building an economy that is not dependent on the federal government and investing in the economy of the future. But his plans to focus on sectors like AI, biotech, data centers, and life sciences simply fall short. The federal government is the leading employer in Maryland and in 7 counties in Maryland. It employs over 300,000 people. Moore has laid out no plan to deal with Trump's slash and burn approach to this federal workforce. Now I want to shift to a couple of things that Moore did not talk about. Climate failure. Moore does not mention climate change or the risk that it poses to Marylanders. He does not mention that we incinerate trash and call it renewable energy. He does not mention that corporations like CSX maintain a large open-air coal pile in Curtis Bay. He does not mention that he and his administration support CSX while the communities are forced to deal with the cumulative consequences of years of pollution and polluting industries. Next, complicity in genocide. Moore does not mention that in word, deed, and law, Maryland is complicit with the ongoing Israeli genocide in Gaza. He does not mention that Maryland, through its Maryland Israel Development Corporation, has a joint venture that builds weapons that are directly used in order to kill people in Gaza and the West Bank. Complicity in genocide has to end. Now, The Republicans responded to Moore by putting their most professional and reasonable sounding speakers in front of the cameras. But tomorrow, I fully expect their most vocal leaders and their Freedom Caucus to get back on social media and continue their trend of cheerleading Trump's plans to destroy Maryland's economy, sharing their longing to live in Virginia under Governor Glenn Youngkin, offering their half-baked solutions to energy, education, and crime, and celebrating cruelty to the most vulnerable. Neither Democrats or Republicans have the solutions that Maryland needs in this time of crisis. We need new voices and new ideas in the debate. Today, throughout all of this, Governor Moore spoke of courage as a recurring theme. But let's be clear, courage is not repeating the same failed policies that created the crisis we face. Courage is daring to imagine a Maryland that is fundamentally more democratic, peaceful, just, and ready to face the many crises coming from us. Courage is the power to transform Maryland into a place that does not lead the nation in youth incarceration or eviction filings. Courage is the power to stand up and say we won't be complicit in war and genocide. Courage is refusing to work with the Trump administration to deport members of our families and our communities. Courage requires being real about the future of Maryland's economy and the sacrifices it will take to get to a Maryland that works for everyone. We need a movement with the courage to imagine a different world and the power to transform Maryland. Over the next 2 years, we will work with Marylanders of every political affiliation across the state to offer a green vision rooted in justice, peace, democracy, and ecological wisdom. It will include a transparent and progressive taxation system that will fund schools, housing, transportation, climate action, all while reducing the burden on working class people and families and making clear and honest declarations of the amount of tax people will need to pay for each of the policies that we pass. It will include an agenda for a solidarity economy to transition beyond dependence on the federal government and toward an economy repairing and revitalizing Maryland's working communities. It will include a path to multi-party democracy in Maryland to ensure more voices are heard, more people are represented, and more solutions are part of the debate. It will include a vision of public safety that does not start and end with police and prisons, but starts with communities and ends with real safety. It will include a plan for climate resilience and reconstruction that makes polluters pay, prepares Marylanders for a just transition and a future beyond fossil fuels. Look, I'm not a career politician. I'm not a member of the 1% like Moore and Hogan. I'm a working class Marylander who, like all of you, is worried about my family, my friends, and my community as we face these crises. I don't know what the future holds or how it will treat us. It seems like it's going to be pretty rough the way the Democrats and Republicans are approaching the state. But what I do know is this: when we say power to the people and we work together with the courage to imagine and the power to transform, we can build a Maryland that works for everyone. That's the message. Together, we can build something better. Together, we can build something that works for everyone. Thank you and have a good night. I appreciate the opportunity to make this address, to reply to the governor, and look forward to continuing the debate as we go forward.